Hey, what is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be going over my Hailey build that utilizes the Cold Heart Transcendent mod. This build does allow you to do everything in the game, even all of the new hard content such as the underwater base and what have you. It is very, very strong. It deals a ton of damage and is actually so much fun to play. Hailey has become one of my go-to mobbers in any sort of situation if I need just fast clears or anything like that. She can deal a ton of area damage, and she's just really strong. As always, if you guys do need screenshots, they are at the end of the video, or if you jump to this timestamp right here on screen. But without further ado, let's jump in and let's check it all out and see how it works. Now, before I get into the build, I did want to say that I have been gone for a couple of months, and there is a reason for that. I finally got my dream job in social media, and I have just been very, very busy with work. And unfortunately, I did have to put YouTube kind of on the back burner to kind of get settled into my new job and everything like that. But now that I am kind of settled down and getting back to a normal routine, I did want to come back on and actually make more content for you guys because I have been playing the first Descendant in the background. I just haven't been making content. So expect weekly builds, hopefully, if time permits and all that stuff. But let's jump into the build. Like I mentioned in the intro, we are going to be using Cold Heart as our Transcendent mod. This is just making her one of the best mobbing builds in the game. She can do just so much damage. It allows her to get movement speed. She can cover a huge amount of area with her fourth ability and just deal a massive amount of damage. So this whole kind of build is based around Cold Heart and how to utilize or capitalize on all of the things that Cold Heart does for the build. Just like with every build on this channel, we are going to be using Nimble Fingers and MP conversion. I call it the dynamic duo. You definitely want to throw these into every single build just to have really, really low cooldowns on your abilities. And then to combo with that, but also giving us our actual power, we're going to be using Focus on Chill and Focus on Singular. Since Cold Heart makes all four of our abilities singular type, these two just make the most sense because we, one, get a little bit of additional skill cooldown, but also get a huge bump into the 2 damage buckets that all 4 of our abilities actually deal. For some quality of life, we're going to throw on increased HP just to have a little bit more bump in our HP. You know, staying healthy in the fight since we are up in the fight is definitely something we're going to want to pick up here. The other quality of life mod we're going to be using is skill expansion just to increase our skill effect range. You want to make sure that her fourth ability can hit at a massive amount of range. So you definitely want to throw this on just as a base bump to our range. And then we are building into the crit package because this build and how her abilities work, you get a ton of skill critical hit rate whenever you have her third ability active. So we want to be able to actually get close to skill critical cap, but also just a ton of crit damage. For that reason, we are going to be using front lines and skill concentration just to give us a huge bump to our critical hit damage, and then skill insight to give us a bump to our crit hit rate. Now, skill insight here can be switched for an Ancestor mod if you do have one that has any sort of skill critical hit rate, skill critical hit damage, and maybe some sort of skill cooldown or increase to HP, increase to MP, stuff like that. Just the generic good skills that you want to actually hit or sub rolls that you want to hit. You definitely want to be pushing into those with an Ancestor mod. I unfortunately don't have a very good one right now, so I'm still grinding out. So for the time being, I'm just using skill insight just to give us a big bump to our hit rate. But once I get a good one that also rolls with hit rate and damage and maybe something else, I'm definitely going to be switching skill insight out here for that Ancestor mod. And then to round it all out, we're using Speed Dominator. This really works well with the trigger module since we're using relative speed, but also just how the build works in general. Like I said, we want to be building into skill critical hit damage, and this gives us not only a flat up 45.8% skill critical hit damage when we land slow type abilities on enemies, but it also gives us an increase to our skill power. And since relative speed kind of works as well with everything, since we are hitting enemies with a slow type skill, it all just kind of flows really nicely, and this just works really, really well. Speaking of relative speed, that is the trigger module we're going to be using. Basically what it reads is when you hit an enemy with a slow type skill, it builds stacks of relative speed. Upon successful weak point attacks from a firearm, which we will get to the guns in a second, at max stacks, you basically deal like an explosion, and it hits all nearby enemies from the enemy that you hit that weak point on with your guns. So it just kind of makes it to where you're using your skills, but you're also using your guns, and they just work in tandem together. And then this deals a massive amount of damage, kind of similar to your fourth ability. It just kind of does like a pop effect, and it hits a ton of stuff in the area that's around whatever you're shooting. So It's just really cool how it all works, and I just really like the whole flow of this build, and it's super fun. And like I said, for an Ancestor module, you're definitely going to want to be looking for skill critical hit rate and skill critical hit damage at the very least. That can make it to where you swap out skill insight for that particular Ancestor mod. And then you can also prioritize things like singular damage, max MP, max HP, any sort of quality of life that you feel that you need to kind of tie into the build. Definitely be looking for that on those Ancestor modules. Me personally, I just don't have a good one yet, but once I get one that has skill critical hit rate and skill critical hit damage and maybe a third roll, then I'm definitely going to swap out skill insight for that. As for the weapons, I am going to be using Thunder Cage since it's just kind of ridiculous. They kind of made it really bad whenever the actual like cores came out for the guns, and then they made it really, really good again. So there's no real reason not to use Thunder Cage. Plus, it's just really good because of her third ability giving that additional skill critical hit rate. You just make this thing a monster, and it just absolutely melts bosses. It melts elites. It even melts like the flying ships. It's just nuts. But this is how I'm rocking it right here. I'm building into electrical damage as well as critical hit rate and critical hit damage. And then you kind of want to throw on some fire rate just because fire rate just helps this thing pump out a crazy amount of bullets. And then I personally use recoil. I know a couple of people use different things here, but recoil to me feels really good. So I've just been rocking that for a while. And then for the modules, this is kind of how I've been building it. I have a couple of different builds, but this is how I've been doing it. There's no real reason to use any sort of like gold mod. I guess you could use Firing Fiesta here, but I opted for more electrical damage, and this has been working really well for me. If you guys want to copy this, I'm not going to super go into detail on the build. You guys should know how to build the weapons by now, and if you don't, just copy this build, and I guarantee you it will do fine. But just, you know, you have all your standard things here. It's just kind of a basic build. And then for other things, you can run around with the Frostwatcher as like a mobbing weapon. This is going to be more of a stat stick versus something that you're actually going to be shooting. But since we are using relative speed, we want to be able to like shoot our weapons and kind of pull off that explosion with relative speed mixed in with speed dominator. So I just opt to use Thunder Cage pretty much everything that I do with this build. I'm just using Thunder Cage, but you can also use Frostwatcher. Its unique ability is going to help increase the chill resistance. It's going to lower the chill resistance of the enemies that you're attacking. And then you can throw something on like the Shadow. I'm still kind of working on this build here. But the Shadow is super, super good. It's more than super good. It's kind of ridiculous how much damage you can do with this thing. And then this is kind of how I built it. I'm building it a toxic and also like additional hits and additional damage. So just all around, this is a pretty basic build for this thing too, but this can melt bosses like no other. So definitely, if you want to copy this, I'd definitely copy this build because it's very strong. But Thunder Cage is really all you need. So definitely, I would build, if you're going to build this build, then I would definitely be rocking Thunder Cage. As for your equipment itself, the Reactor, we're going to be using a chill singular Reactor, and you want to be pumping into skill critical hit damage here, as well as skill cooldown. You could maybe opt for something like a boost ratio into either chill or singular, but personally, the more skill critical damage you have, the better with this build, just because we are building into crit, so there's no real reason not to. And then cooldown is just a very good quality of life, helps with everything, makes it so you can spam your one faster. This is honestly just like the best god roll on a lot of different builds, is just going into crit damage and cooldown. Take it with what you will. This is what I would personally use though. And then we are doing a 4-piece of the Polar Knight set because it just works really well with our kit, with the whole Frostbite stacks giving us more critical hit damage and skill for both our fire rate, or our firearm and our skills. And then when you defeat the enemies, you get an additional, you deal additional damage equal to your HP, which is why the HP mod helps in tandem with all this. Your typical things here, your MP recovery in and out of combat, your max HP, your max MP, defense, and then this, obviously, you guys know the processor doesn't matter, so this one doesn't matter. Put on whatever you want. And then HP and defense cores just all the way down. There's no real reason not to do that unless you're doing something specific that you're building into specifically. like resistances and whatnot. So as for our Arche tuning, this is kind of how I've built it. This gets you into not only your cooldown capstone, but also Arche concentration. This gives you more skill critical hit damage per stack that you obtain when you debuff an enemy. This is just perfect because we are slowing enemies with her one ability. Therefore, we're debuffing. Therefore, we're just making our skill crit damage go even higher. Like I said, you really want to build into skill crit with this build. And then we have like the important nodes are going to be your skill critical hit damage here, your hit rate. All of this is just like skill power, increasing a little bit of range. This is cost. This is pretty important. You want to make your things cost less. You get a little bit of range here. All of this is skill power and MP, but this is how I would build it. And then for your inversion reinforcements for the season, this is kind of the way that I've been pushing a lot of different characters. I've been using just pain suppression just for increased HP whenever we're under 50%. Selective cellular simulation, this is just always good to have. You could opt to maybe use this one instead to give yourself more MP recovery, but I've just opted for this for my inversion reinforcement to kind of help me stay alive. And then we're already also using ammo system since we are going to be hitting those critical hits with our firearm. This just gives us increased reload time basically, just because we're going to be spamming the thunder cage and reloading it constantly. So you might as well have it reload faster. So this is what I've been rocking. Feel free to kind of play around with this top one if you're not going to be going gun oriented. You are just going to be running around with, say, the Frost Watcher. You could maybe opt out of ammo system and go for one of these on the top line to give maybe, you know, like a reduction to skill cost. This one's really strong in this build. You could also potentially get more range, more movement speed when you hit with a skill, or even some more skill cooldown. So the top row is really good, but I just opted for this just because it makes my Thunder Cage feel a little better with this build, and this is just kind of how I've been rocking it. So, and then for everyone's favorite part of my videos, the fashion. I started doing this a couple of videos back, and everyone seemed to really enjoy the fact that I show my fashion. So this is kind of what I've been rocking on Hailey for a while. We are going to be using the Silent Kill body skin, as well as the Harris Works head skin. I kind of get like snowboarder vibes from this with the goggles. And I just thought that this was a really cool skin. I've also been rocking this a little bit too. Same concept, but just a little different. But this is definitely my favorite go-to. As for the actual like paints, it's a mixture of the matte black, the shiny metal silver, and the noble teal blue, as well as the actual like jacket part. I've been rocking the deep matte navy. I'm sorry, the matte deep navy. So this is what I really like to rock on her. I think it looks really cool. And then we throw on a little bit of the matte metal white as well, just to kind of give like the snow chill character vibes. And then for some reason, I've always just liked her with the orange sunset hair. I've just seen her as like a redhead. I don't know why Hailey gives redhead vibes, but this is also what we're rocking here as far as the colors, just to match the actual suit. And then I put this backpack on like every character that I play. I just think it looks really cool. This one's the Knight Rider bag. And then you get like the same sort of concept. I threw a little bit of the shiny black in here, the enamel deep black, and it kind of just gives the same glow, the same vibe as this. I don't know. I think it looks really cool. And then I'm using this for the makeup, but you can kind of just, you don't have to worry about that. I don't know. I just think this looks nice. And then the frost lines is my spawn, just because it's ice themed and she's an ice character. So yeah, that's what I'm rocking. Let me know what you guys think of the fashion. I think it looks pretty cool. That one and this one are my kind of two go-tos for fashion. If you want to see this real quick, I will give you a demonstration of all of the paints. Again, matte metal white and the noble teal blue are kind of my main colors, mixed in with a lot of the silvers and the gray, silvers and blacks. Everything else is the exact same on this. The only thing that changes is the actual physical body skin. So let me know what you guys think of the fashion. I think she looks cool. Wow, you actually skipped to the screenshots. Nah, I'm just playing. That's totally cool. I hope you enjoyed the screenshots. And if you have any questions, please drop a comment. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you. All right, guys, that is going to do it for my Cold Heart Hailey build. Let me know what you think of it down in the comments. And if you guys are going to put this build together and have any questions, please feel free to ask. As always, make sure you guys like the video and subscribe for some more First Descendant stuff. I do want to start doing weekly videos again now that I am settled down with my full-time job and kind of getting back to the swing of things. And also down in the comments, let me know what characters you want to see on the channel. I have a lot of different builds put together right now since I have been playing this game a lot recently. And I could definitely cover some cool things, maybe do some updated guides on some of my older builds on the channel, such as like Freyna or Glay. And I also want to be covering Daya soon. So Daya, she's so much fun, dude. She's ridiculous, actually. So a ton of stuff planned. It's just a matter of when I have time to actually make these videos and upload them. But stay tuned for more. I'll catch you guys next time. And as always, peace out, guys.